Hi everyone, my name is Weiting. I'm the head of product analytics at Cazoo. This is my first time speaking in front of a live audience since I did like spelling bee maybe when I was in the 7th grade. And I also forgot to print my notes, so I had to write them. If I look confused, it's because I can't read my handwriting. So I have changed the name of my talk to putting the product into product analytics, but the content is more or less the same. It's about how to make time for proactive analysis when all you feel like you're doing is responding reactively to requests. Cool? So the agenda, I'm going to talk a bit about myself, give you some context for where I'm working at the moment, give an example, what's worked so far, and some lessons. So that is a very generic agenda. So let's get cracking. So this is me. I have worked in analytics for almost 13 years across different functions like BI, marketing, etc. But I found my home in product analytics. So I started at product analytics at Zoopla about 12 years ago. And then I helped to build a product analytics function at Bumble with my manager at the time, Yelena. Big shout out to her. And now I am the head of product analytics at Cazoo, where I've helped to build the data team over the last 3.5 years. So what is product analytics? I think it's good to sort of establish so that we're all on the same page because it can mean different things to different people. I've stolen this slightly controversial post that Bob made on LinkedIn about what he thinks product analytics is compared to data analytics. A lot of people had something to say about it. I'll leave you to form your own opinions. But to me, product analytics is about working with product teams and their stakeholders to use data to drive decision making. And that includes both qualitative and quantitative data. So I think the thing that I love about product analytics and also data more generally is that it is multidisciplinary. You get to work with different subjects depending on what area you're working in. You get to work on different tools and techniques. You learn when to use qualitative data versus quantitative data. And you get to meet different people. So like engineers, finance people, marketing, commercial stakeholders, and most importantly, product managers. So this talk is mostly about what I've learned from working with some really awesome product managers about how to make analysis a priority, because product managers are prioritizing all the time. They have to do it as their main job and relentlessly so. So, Cazoo. I don't know how many people have heard of Cazoo, but hopefully all of you will know what it is by the end of this. So we sell used cars online. You can buy a car, you can buy extra products like warranties, you can sell your car to us, and then you can have it delivered to you in the comfort of your own home within 7 days. So it's slightly a new proposition, and it will hopefully change the way that people buy used cars. So we started trading in December of 2019, which is almost 3 years ago, not quite. And at the time, we had a data analytics and data science team of 4 people, including myself. We spent the first pretty much 1.5 years just building the data warehouse, using dbt, and just trying to keep up with the reporting of all of the new features that we were launching. Now the team is about 30 people, and we have thousands of people in the company. So more people equals more stakeholders, equals lots of questions and ad hoc requests. I've tried to make a graph of what our team growth looks like in relation to the company growth. And as you can see, it has not scaled. So there was a brief period, maybe in like month 6 of our operating, where we had enough analysts to meet everybody's needs. And then after that, it's just been constant firefighting. That's not what our team signed up for. They're analysts. They want to analyze data. They don't want to build our data models constantly, and they don't want to be firefighting all the time. So we had to figure out how we could get them working on some analysis. Some of it is situational, and things have gradually gotten better over time. So as a business, especially now, the focus has shifted towards optimization rather than building the next payment method or trying to figure out the basics that we need to have a functioning company. Over the years, we've had some stakeholders in particular who've really gotten to know our tools and our data, and they've become experts at self-service, which means that they don't ask us to build them dashboards anymore. We get to engage with them in a more exciting way. And lastly, we have some champions for observability, that's such a hard word, in our engineering teams. So working with them, we've actually prioritized being able to measure things at the start rather than doing analytics as an afterthought, which I know has happened to me so many times and is, judging from the smile, is an experience that other people have shared as well. So a great example of a team that we've worked with where this has happened is our car finance team. So car finance is a way that you can pay for your car by spreading the cost out over many months. The metric that we use for this is called the attachment rate, which is just what percentage of our customers who are ordering pay with finance. So this chart here is a graph of our attachment rate over our first 6 months of operating. We, at that point, as you can imagine, were a growing company, and therefore our volumes were not very high, and there was a lot of volatility. It would go up, it would go down, and every time the line went down, different stakeholders across the business would ask different people on our team, oh my God, what's happening? Is something broken? Like, what's going on? From the product managers to the commercial people, all the way to the C-suite. Sadly, we had no seasonal data because we'd just started the company. And even if we had, I think it would have been pretty much useless because that dip that you see right there is the start of COVID. So that just threw everything out the window. And I think what we realized was we needed to know a bit more about what was going on and try to proactively get a handle on it so we could at least rule out certain things and hone in on things that could be causing fluctuations. So, working with the data science team and my team, we kicked off a deep dive of the attachment rate. There were a lot of different pieces and a lot of different learnings, but two of the ones that I wanted to share were that, one, we learned that customers might submit finance applications even though they know they might be rejected, which is a very interesting customer behavior, I think. And then the second thing that we learned a lot about was which vehicle characteristics drive the attachment rate. So after that, we built an app using Streamlit, which is another really cool tool to normalize the trends for these characteristics. And what happened was that the stakeholders could self-serve. So they could support each other even, and that saved us a lot of time because they could sometimes find the answers to their own questions. That little bit of product knowledge about the customers submitting the applications on cars they couldn't afford made us realize and help inform the product team that we needed to really focus on customer affordability. So what happened was that they were able to prioritize affordability features, and that resulted in the finance eligibility checker, which is something that we have on our website now. And that allows the customers to actually find the right priced car from them before they do the application and have a credit check and then ruin their credit or any of that. So we know that we were able to deliver value to our customers that way. By understanding the vehicle features, there was a understanding of the impact of purchasing on the revenue. So that's given us an extra lever that we can pull when we need to optimize our revenue. We have reusable code, which we are now using to analyze other ancillary products like warranty sales and using to build a predictive model. And lastly, and possibly most importantly, the team was able to upskill, work together, and work on some cool stuff instead of just like building reports all the time. So it was a success. And we know it was a success because we know we delivered customer value and we were also able to move our metrics in the right direction. So yeah, I am going to now talk about a few ways of working changes that we implemented that helped to move us in this direction and to move the team more generally to working on cooler projects. So the first one is planning, and I know this sounds so obvious, but when you're an individual contributor, you plan your work and maybe you work with other people and you know exactly what's going on. When I first started to manage a team, I had no idea how to move a group of people who were all working on different things into the right direction. And I didn't really know what the right direction was. I like aspirationally maybe had some idea, but I didn't really have a plan or a strategy because one, I was too busy firefighting, and two, I was like, oh, what's the point? I work in a startup, things are changing all the time, I just give up. And that's not really like a good attitude to have. So what I realized was probably the first step to doing more useful things is to figure out actually what you want to do. And so that's what we have here is just like an impact and effort matrix. We did some workshops with the team and everybody produced some ideas that they thought would be really useful to help drive business value depending on like the company OKRs at the time. But there's a lot of tools and a lot of frameworks that you can use for that. Once you have the ideas, how do you decide which ones to do and when? And it turns out that that's what a roadmap is for. So obvious, I know, but it was new to me. So an analytics roadmap, in my experience, looks a little bit different from like a products roadmap because ultimately we are also a support function. And so we have things that we need to deliver for other teams, whether it's reporting or bits of analysis about changes that we know are upcoming, that's always there. But by using a roadmap, you can actually plot that and see when you'll have time, what you'll be able to fit in, and also importantly, know what's aligned with the priorities, what work that you're doing is aligned with the priorities, and try to start to understand the value so you can start pushing back on stuff. So that's pretty cool. When I started using roadmaps, I got really stuck on the tools. I was like, I don't know how to fit all of these things into the right boxes. And it turns out there are people who are experts in doing that, and they are called product managers. Much as we in analytics are experts at using our analytics tools, product managers are experts at using planning tools. So if you are able to, ask them for help, and they would probably be glad to help you. And by working with a product manager, I saved myself so much time and made so much progress. And then just the last note on this. So at Cazoo, we are on a quarterly OKR cycle. And what I found over the last year is that there are ebbs and flows to the work that we have to do for other teams. So usually the start of the quarter is really busy, the end of the quarter is really busy, and we can find time in the middle of the quarter to try to like sneak stuff in. And similarly for summer and Christmas holidays, usually people aren't releasing new features. So that's a good time to do collaborative work with the team where somebody might pick something up and then they could pass it off to somebody else when they go on holiday and just build up on that incrementally. And we found that that works really well for us. So now that you have all of these projects that you want to do, how can you make sure that people have time to do them? The situation that we found ourselves in was that everybody was getting a lot of questions individually, it was causing a lot of interruptions and context switching, and people were getting very frustrated because they didn't have the time to focus. Luckily, as I said, we have a product manager working with our analytics team. So we grouped together to figure out a way to support the day-to-day work, but not at the expense of our project work. And in particular, we wanted to make sure that we were getting the right help to the right people at the right time, because there were a few situations where people messaged us about bugs in our reporting, and because they messaged individuals, it just completely got lost in a swamp of other messages, so we didn't solve the problem in time, and then it escalated way more than it should have, which is something that we don't want to repeat. So what we started with was a data drop-in. So there was this talk given at one of the DBT conferences about office hours, and I watched it, and I thought, oh, that's a great idea, let's try that. So we started with a weekly data drop-in where anybody could come in and ask questions about pretty much anything. And as the company grew and there was more demand for that, we ended up doing it every day. And so there was a rotation of analysts on call, and they would basically have to support like once an hour every day for that week. It ended up taking up a lot of time, so we thought, oh, maybe if we switch it to Slack, we'll be able to manage it a lot better. That just made it explode even more because there were even less barriers to entry. So we ended up having 2 analysts on call. We tried to put in more barriers by putting in a request form, but people would just fill out the request form with whatever, and then it was just still so many requests. And as you can imagine, if you have a slightly smaller team, 2 people a week spending their time on that is loads of time. It just was not working out. Nobody wanted to go on call. It was really stressful. And finally, we were like, this is really not working for us. So what we've ended at now is we have a full-time support role. And this is it feels very luxurious, but it's absolutely amazing. So what our current support flow looks like is the requester still has to fill out the form. We've made the form a little bit more restrictive to get the information that we need to from our stakeholders. And then after that, it goes onto a triage board, and the full-time support person basically goes through the board every day, makes sure that the most important and high urgency requests get picked up, and then everything else can just be delegated out to the team as and when they're ready to work on it. He handles all of the communication, so there's no interruption, and the result is that everybody is really happy, actually. It's great. So, lessons. For maximum team happiness, you have to make sure that your team get to focus and collaborate and learn and do interesting things. If you treat analytics as another kind of data product, it can cause an interesting shift in the way that you work, probably for the better. And if you are going to do that and think about analytics as a product, then you should consult with the people who are experts at product, which is product managers. So yeah, I think that is all I wanted to say today. The end.